Hello and welcome to this episode of Breck Buzz. I'm Rick Holman, your town manager, and joining me today are two members of our town council, Jeffrey Bergeron and Mike Dudick.
Thank you both. I'm on your right, but only not stage left.
That's true.
Okay, get that going for me.
When was the last time you were on the right?
I know, we're bookend, man.
And I'm on the left.
See, like, yeah, so it's perfect. Yeah, we're flexible at the Breckenridge City Council, so
That's good.
it's gonna be a beautiful thing. I'm excited to work in the Big Papi.
Well, and this is your first time back to Breck Buzz since getting reelected on the council, so
Happy to be here.
yeah, and congratulations to you. And I know we've had Jeffrey once since then, so we got a great group of people. And as we stated right after the election, we're hitting the ground running this year. We don't. Everybody that's on there has experience.
And the food's improved.
Before, and the food is improved. It's
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Well, that's important to me to make sure that we have good food, lots of fried
We
chicken.
know that.
That was a campaign promise.
All right, why don't we jump in because we're going to spend the first half of our Breck Buzz program with Jeffrey and Mike, and when we go into break later and come back, we'll be out in the field, and our communications director Kim Dykstra will be interviewing Scott Reed, who is the director of recreation, talking about what programs we have going on, along with some exciting news on our remodel that the town has already approved for next year. But we'll talk a little bit about that. But if we look back at some of the legislative items that are going on with the council and what we're doing in the last month, the council recently approved an amendment to an intergovernmental agreement that creates the Summit Combined Housing Authority. And maybe you could talk a little bit about why we amended this agreement and the purpose for that, Mike.
Well, I think the county is trying to go forward with a increase in the sales tax of 0.6%. And this agreement allows us to participate in, if it passes, allows us to participate in the collection of the revenues. The money would go towards workforce housing, and it would be shared proportionately based on the amount of sales tax collected by each community: Breckenridge, Frisco, Dillon, Silverthorne, etc. Breckenridge collects about, I think it's 33% of total sales tax in the community. The projections are around 7 million and change without any kind of for the first year. And sales taxes have been going off charts here. I mean, you walk around any of our mountain towns this summer, you just see just millions of people up here. So maybe the number will be higher, but just with the current projection in Breckenridge at 33%, 7 million is a couple, maybe $2.4 million a year for us to help construct workforce housing. And Breckenridge is, I think, far ahead of the other communities in terms of getting some things done. And not to disparage any of the other communities, but I think we have a leadership role in getting workforce housing done and want to continue to do that. I think that the last needs study for our basin is another 1,300 bedrooms, and maybe even be more than that. So I think that there's a without campaigning for this, I think there's a clear need for us to figure out, whether this passes or not, a solution to provide some more workforce housing for the sustainability of the community. And so this is something that people should learn about and understand, and then make your decision. But the nuts and bolts of it is 0.6% sales tax with a 10-year sunset that should generate, over the lifespan of that for the town of Breckenridge, $25-30 million or so. And so that goes a long ways towards helping us construct 1,300 units if it were to pass.
And, and as Mike was saying, Breckenridge is a little bit ahead of the game, has been embracing workforce housing for many years now. But this is going to be good for the whole county, for the simple fact that the affordable housing, the attainable workforce, however you want to describe it, will not be as much confined just to Breckenridge.
Yes.
So I think it will reduce the commute, maybe less taxing on the infrastructure, and it'll have a more broad-based residency through the community that people can, they live in the north side of the county, if they work there, they can live there, opposed to perhaps living in Breckenridge and commuting to Silverthorne or Dillon or whatnot. So I think even though Breckenridge has been doing this for a while, I think it's good for the whole community, and I think it's definitely good for the county, and hopefully folks will get involved, learn about it, and make a decision.
Yeah, I was talking with Thomas Davidson, Summit County Commissioner, yesterday, and the Lake Hill project in Frisco, they don't have water there yet, and they don't have utilities, and so they've got this land where they can build a whole bunch of housing, but the infrastructure is a big deal to get this stuff done. We're lucky in our town of Breckenridge that we have a lot of that in place, and so the infrastructure part of it doesn't provide an impediment to us getting some things done. And so I agree with you, for the balance of the county, it'll go a long ways towards helping make more workforce housing a reality, rather than just a we know we need it, but how are we going to pay for it kind of a thing.
And our goal, and I don't know if we've achieved it or even come close, but our goal initially was 47% of the Breckenridge population lives in the Breckenridge workforce lives in Breckenridge. And, we've been in and out of that number for a while, but that's the ultimate goal. But the bottom line is over half of our workers live someplace else. And that can be a hardship and also a tax on the infrastructure. So we'll see what happens with this one, but we're behind workforce housing for sure.
Yeah. And the board of directors on for the Summit Combined Housing Authority have voted to approve a resolution that will put this on the ballot. So, again, as Mike stated, I would encourage all of you to watch, listen, learn more about this. You certainly have your opportunity to vote on this in November. It's an important decision for our community. And there'll be quite a few items on the ballot this November. So
I think you're right. And I think that even a study that shows 13, we were having a discussion yesterday, Jeffrey and I were, where we say 1,300 bedrooms we're short right now. Maybe we change our mind and say we just need to build 600 or something like that. But it's based on the demands in the community and schools and other infrastructure, maybe we don't go all the way to 1,300, but I think that most business people in this community agree that we got to do we need more than what we currently have. Yeah. We may not need to go all the way up to that level, but we certainly need to do something more than what we're doing.
In a healthy county will be one where the workforce housing, the attainable housing is spread out, not necessarily confined to one community. So we're all for that.
Well, thank you for all that information on that. Jeffrey, one of the other items, it went the last council meeting last week, it went to first reading, but we're looking at, once again, it's marijuana. And another amendment to the ordinance, but there's some specific, a couple of details that we're trying to address in that. And so
it's interesting that we're still talking about marijuana, even though marijuana is no longer a mare. Now it's mamamula, which doesn't rhyme with pot. Essentially what this is confining and agreeing with state findings about how to measure the distance between dispensaries and schools, and just to try, it's more of a housekeeping measure, trying to determine where dispensaries can be located and how we measure that distance. And was it before? Was it as the crow flies? But now it's well,
before it was actually considered on the path that a pedestrian would use. So you may go out and follow a sidewalk versus a direct lane.
And now is it as the crow flies?
Yes.
Or as the crow wobbles? And so that, and also we extended the moratorium. We have a moratorium for dispensaries, and we continued that on until further notice.
Yeah. Another thing staff suggested in this amendment that quite important, because there's a lot of time that goes into processing an application. Mm-hmm. And so even though we have a moratorium and we won't have any new businesses, we can still process a change of ownership if somebody sells a business. But we're going to ask in this change that they must get a a conditional state license first
Right.
before they would come into town, because we want to make sure before we go to all the work to process a license that it appears that the state would in fact license them. And it's more important that they have to meet that criteria before we would issue a license anyway.
So they jump through the hoops of the state before they come to us.
Yeah.
One thing is kind of interesting. People, there's much misnomer about the marijuana business. People assume that, we spend a huge amount of time dealing with this for very little return. Pot revenue is like 1% of the Breckenridge budget. I've had people say, Colorado's so busy is because of the legalization of marijuana. That is not true. Colorado's busy because it's a great place to visit. Like in Breckenridge, which they say, we have four or five dispensaries, it's 1% of our budget. We have bars, restaurants, t-shirt shops, so many other retail opportunities. Pot's a real small part of it, but it does make up a fair amount of our time suck as far as our staff. That's why we want them to kind of go through the state process before they even come to us.
That's true. It's a small part of the sales tax, but if you look at the revenue for the dispensaries that we have in town, the growth has been astronomical that these dispensaries in Airport Road have had over the last year and a half or 2 years. It's staggering the amount of increase in taxable revenues that they've experienced. And so
in other words, it might have been a third of a percent, and now it's 1%.
Yes.
Oh, really?
So I think it's probably, you probably know better than me, maybe almost 20% growth year over year in taxable revenues from the dispensaries. And so I don't want to say isolating them or just restricting their locations to Airport Road hasn't impacted the aggregate revenue that the dispensaries are taking in. It's gone up dramatically in the last year.
That's a good point. I didn't know that.
We saw a decline the first couple months after we removed them off of Main Street, and then now we're seeing significant increases each month up and above what we were getting before. So you're seeing that spread out over more businesses now.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the other items that the council is looking at, and a question that we're going to put on the ballot, and our viewers may have read it. There was a nice article in the paper earlier or last week, talked about opting out of this Senate Bill 152. And people may recall that last November there was a question, a countywide question from Summit County, giving them the ability to opt out of this. And basically what 152 is, back in 2005, the state legislature set up parameters that restricts a local government from partnering with private vendors in creating like broadband utilities or enhancing broadband without an approval of the voters to allow them to do that. We've never done that. I think 40 communities around Colorado have opted out. And what you're seeing are a lot more people now wanting that ability to enhance the broadband services within a community. And so we're going to put that question on the ballot in November also.
I think it's a good thing, because who hasn't been here when it's been really busy in Christmas time or March, or even right now in the summertime, where you get your voicemail shows up a day later or 2 days later, or your text messages don't go through, or what. So I think that there's a need for us to do something better. And this is a potential vehicle for us to accomplish that as a community. I don't know if it's the right thing to do, but I know that we need to do something.
Yeah, I didn't get the invitation to your Christmas party until after New Year's last year.
No, you did. You just didn't get through the retinal scan to get in the house.
So that's why. But what I'm curious about, and there again, we're exploring. Erin Giello and Wendy Wolver kind of exploring the possibilities of the town, something with broadband down the road. It's a long process. But initially, why did the legislature pass that bill is that more of an industry protectionism that's why that could pass? Because we have to opt out of it if we want to even consider doing it.
I think the speculation is that, you have obviously, your large providers out there
Want to protect themselves,
have big lobbyists that look to protect, because, we have one example now where Longmont, Colorado has basically created their own utility.
Yeah.
Just like water, and they offer broadband services at a fraction of the cost that are people paying at some of the highest speeds in the nation.
Right.
That they're able to do. So, are we going to get to that point? We don't know. But at least this gives us an option to explore opportunities, and I think that's where the trend is headed, and they look at public-private partnerships, and who knows what that could be. But it's important for the town to be in a position to allow us to explore those partnerships.
I think it's one of the cool things about local politics, pardon me, where a community like Breckenridge creates the opportunity to be able to have the flexibility to on a wide variety of issues, whether it's broadband or parking or transit or housing or whatever, that we get a lot of smart people that serve on town council and that work in the town government and that advise the people and both the staff and the council. There's a lot of opportunities for really creative solutions to lots of different things, and so this kind of deal gives us just more flexibility to be creative. And I think that having more arrows in your quiver for figuring out creative solutions to a variety of things is one of the coolest things about small town government.
Some of this stuff could make a huge difference. Not only certainly for the locals, would have much better service if that ever came to pass. But think of the scenario of someone that is up here skiing on a Sunday, has a second home, rather than fighting the traffic. They spend their Monday up here working from their home because we have decent service, decent broadband speed, and they can open up the whole door to open up the less traffic and help the economy. So and kudos to the people that thought of this.
I don't know if it's good or bad, but you don't have to sit in an office to get your work done anymore.
Yeah. And that'll be a ballot initiative in November, along with so many others.
This morning I got up and I sat on my back porch and did emails for a couple hours, and it was just great. Just getting to look up at the mountains and the trees and birds and not being in a cubicle was great.
Well, you're a regular John Muir.
So one thing that we've been talking with our viewers a lot about, and obviously our community out there, is...
have you been to Muir Woods before?
Yeah, I have. It's
really cool.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
And then the beach with that cliff drop off, it's awesome.
I illegally camped there.
I bet you did.
Yeah,
what else did you illegally do there?
I love that place.
I think I've lost control.
Don't get
already.
Parking and
we're going to talk
transportation.
about parking, because we don't talk. It's like marijuana. That's all we talk about for a while. But there isn't a day that goes by that we're not working on something to do with implementing changes that I think are going to have an impact in our parking and transportation. And one thing our viewers have been hearing from us all along is that this is a comprehensive approach, and there is no single silver bullet to this, and it's a lot of little things that are going to get people out of cars, relieve congestion. Well, we've been talking to the council about we've got to take a hard look at Park Avenue so we've got a series of requests for proposals that have gone out recently to get people in to study what changes could be made to Park Avenue and where is the right location for roundabouts. And something that you talked about is, we need to look at this hard and determine how fast we can do it if it needs to get done.
Well, listening to, I was on town council for 4 years, off for a couple of years, just back on in April, and just got into the discussion with the parking and transit consultants, and I think they had a lot of good ideas. And I think that roundabouts, I think roundabouts are a great starting place. If you think about Park Avenue, the different intersections from South Park in Maine to North Park in Maine, there's probably 5 or 6 different places where we could put roundabouts. probably take us a couple years to get all those built. But we're also going to be, I think it's known in the community, we're talking with the ski resort and potentially trying to acquire some of their land to build parking structures too. And so that, if that comes to fruition, then that may change some of my thinking or council's thinking about the roundabouts, because if we were to build something in town, which I think everyone agrees that we need to do something with that, that may change ingress and egress patterns for people, and so my initial thought was that roundabouts were the first thing, but if we build a big parking structure somewhere in town in cooperation with the ski resort, then maybe we need fewer roundabouts, and we can be, you know, pragmatic about how we make capital expenditures to resolve parking. And I think that I sometimes I think when people say parking, I think what we're really missing is a lot of what locals feel like is it's really a transit issue. It's congestion. It's not where do we park the skiers, because the skiers get parked and they get down the bus and they go up to the ski resort. Yeah. But it's, you know, you can't drive down Main Street in the wintertime. You know, like I lived on Boreas for years, you drive down French, right, and you just always avoid Main Street. And for our guests and for other people here that can't avoid it, I think that we have a responsibility to figure out how we can ease the congestion in the community in a responsible way. And so this town council is actively and vigorously exploring options to solve not only parking, but transit and congestion issues in the community.
You know, and what we did, we brought to the table these guys, in Nelson and Nygaard, is that the name? Yeah. And, you know, and they do this all over the world. And you know, I think sometimes it's, you're tempted to kind of react opposed to be proactive. And they pretty turned me on to the kind of a concept of like a feng shui community planning. And you know, you think that I'll just build something there, or we're going to put a roundabout here. But it's almost an organic approach, and it's these kind of the subtleties of how traffic flows and how people live in a community. I thought it was really enlightening, and a lot of this stuff made total sense. Much of it is about transportation and walkability, and we've already kind of committed to do some more, throw some more money at the purple route and the yellow route up out by Airport Road, and as well as trying to figure out how to make us a more walkable community. And then the parking's added parking is a component as well. So it's not just one thing. I think it's like Mike said. It's a menu of things that will make the community more livable and more enjoyable to visit.
Yeah. It makes me excited to be part of town council again too, because I view the workforce housing in the same kind of mathematical sense as I view parking and transit. They're a real estate developer, timeshare developer in town. I view these issues as real estate development questions and how we get those things done. And so for me, I feel like it's in my wheelhouse to be creative and figure out how we can do these things in a good, thoughtful, but capital conscious way to get things done, but understanding that there's a real problem out there to solve. And so you can identify that and then just be thoughtful and pragmatic about solving it. And so I'm excited that the council, everyone in the council has experience, and we can hit the ground running, and we don't have to have our training wheels on for 3 months or for a year to get to the point where we can start solving these and tackling these issues. Yeah. We're all in on trying to get this done as thoughtfully and as quickly as possible.
And hopefully in my lifetime.
Well,
I'm feeling pretty good right now, so I think it's a safe bet we can do it.
Well, and when do you start collecting Social Security?
You need a job to do that.
And you know, Mike said we're actively and vigorously addressing this, and that's important. And I want people to hear that. And there's been communication going on, and people are receiving cards in the mail, and you know that the town isn't moving quick enough. But you know, we're becoming smarter. We're learning more. This is a process, and you know, you do this. This is a big deal, and you do it, and you want to do it right. And we don't want to make mistakes, and I hope people respect that. You know, we're forging ahead on a plan, but we are learning as we're going. In some regards, we have to continue to look at different factors, and so
I think you're right on it with that, and I'm back now for 3 months in my second go around in council. I think we have, from a governmental standpoint, accomplished more in 3 months on these issues. In my previous tenure on council, what we've accomplished in the last 3 months would have taken a year and a half to do. I mean, it just would move so plodding and so slow. And this group of people that you've elected we are all in on getting something done and getting it done in like I said, in a pragmatic, quick fashion. And it's to me, it may seem slow to the people on the outside that aren't familiar with the process, but I can assure you that this is, for a town council and town staff and with a private business with like the ski resort, this is happening at light speed since the end of April to where we are here in early August.
And I'd like to thank the community because they attended, so many of them attended these parking task force workshops and various community events and gave their input, which I think made a huge difference. And a lot of the input that we received from the public went into our decision-making process. So we heard you and we took your suggestions seriously and are taking your suggestions seriously.
And it's not the only thing that we have going on in town either.
No.
Because we have other things under construction, continuing to add amenities, new amenities, remodel existing amenities. If you look at housing, we talk a lot about housing. Pinewood 2 is operational now. It's about 3/4 full. We expect it to be. So we're 5 weeks into this facility, 3/4 full. We expect it to be completely full by the end of August. And
that's rental housing.
That's a rental housing. But if you drive up County Road 450 lately, you're seeing a lot of construction occurring on that Huron Landing site just up from 7-Eleven. So that will be going vertical shortly. Yep. They're doing foundation work, and that's also at by CMC.
Yeah. And you know what? In a workforce housing need is nothing new. I mean, back in the 70s, I lived in my car and that was the wintertime.
So you lived in a van down by the river?
By the river. So this is nothing new. And actually, we're so far ahead of other communities across the state, other resorts. As far like they have in Aspen, there's trailers that people are happy to buy for $1 million in town, and we're ahead of it, ahead of the curve, and we're not resting on our laurels. We're still trying.
I think that the town has a lot of money, and that's a testament to previous councils and your predecessor, and even Gary Martinez before Tim Gagan, to have built up a stockpile of cash to get to. I mean, we're doing capital projects throughout our town, whether it's housing or the rec center or other things. Drunken sailors are going to call us for lessons on how to spend money. I mean, we are. My personal view is it's not the town government's responsibility to save money for the community. If we're collecting taxes, then we have a responsibility to save money in a pragmatic fashion and make sure we have the reserves that run that business of running the town well. But when we have extra money, it's not my view as a council person, it's not my job to tax you and save your money for some unknown thing we're going to spend it on in the future. That we have to save it to run the business of the town well, but then go spend it on things like workforce housing or improving the rec center, improving the quality of life that we have in this community. And so I'm happy that I get to be in the position of one of the chief drunken sailors.
Yeah. And there again, a lot of the tax dollars go to recreation, open space, housing, childcare, and we feel good about that. I mean, if you use the rec center, every time anyone uses the rec center, there's a stipend. The rec center doesn't break even. It's getting close to breaking even. But a probably better example would be the Gold Run Nordic Center or the ice rink. All of those to a point are underwritten by the community, and we're happy to do it because I think that enhances the livability here. It's good for the locals, and it's a draw for the guests. Golf. We've thrown money at that.
I'm a big fan.
And it's well spent money.
Yes.
It is.
So, my cost per stroke is very expensive.
if people drive by the ice rink now, you will see the actual new roof being constructed. The beams are going across. You'll actually have a picture of that and an update in your next town council packet, but that's good to see. So we are well on track to have that operational by the 1st of November, which was the goal, to have the roof over that outdoor ice rink, which is going to give us a lot more flexibility in how we program that space.
And you know what? I'd harken back to an earlier discussion we had in the show. You know, we talked about parking, and we said we didn't want to do anything cavalierly. We wanted to think before we acted. We want to make sure that we had a right decision before we threw money at it. And when you look at some of these facilities, like that ice rink, that indoor-outdoor ice rink, if we had maybe had perhaps a little bit more foresight and put a roof on it right after get-go, the Riverwalk Center, that initially was a tent, if we had made that a permanent facility like it is now, we probably would have saved money in the long run. And so a lot of times, you know, our job is to look ahead and not make a snap judgment about what we should do, respond to immediate need, but I'll actually look and say, well, what will the need be 20 years from now?
And we don't always know what that is either.
And I think that's the trick with this parking, transit, and workforce housing, is to really try and be thoughtful of what's it's going to look like 10 years from now, and what do we need 10 years from now.
Yeah.
And like we were talking about earlier before we started filming this, the unintended consequences of building more housing or the parking stuff, and just making sure that we're not being pragmatic, or we just need to be smart about how we're doing things and have an eye not on tomorrow, but also 10 years from now and 20 years from now.
We just threw him like a wicked curveball. He was going to go to the outdoor ice rink, and then we went back to parking, and then, you know, I'm plugging my book sales. You know, it's just, he's lost control.
We're like two atoms just kind of bouncing around.
That's good. It keeps it interesting.
Yeah.
But what I would, you know, as we wind down this first half of our program, you know, I'd like to take an opportunity. Recently, on July 28th, we hosted a little thank you reception for some of our boards and commissions.
Yeah.
And I know you guys have been a part of this before, and you've served on many of these boards and commissions. And the town relies a lot on the volunteer efforts of a lot of these people that serve, whether it's our liquor license authority, the planning commission, our open space advisory commission. We have an advisory board for our recreation department. Our police have had an advisory board for the last 16 years to just talk about how the level of services that they deliver within the community. And, you know, all of these, I don't know I think it's like 75 or 80 people that serve on these different boards. And, you know, we did it at the new Breckenridge Theater. We had a little reception and that on the 28th. And, you know, personally, I want to thank all of those people for what they provide.
You know what, and that's just a fraction of the folks that volunteer for our nonprofits. You know, if you look at the BMF, the NRO, the BCA, or any other acronym that I don't know the names for.
NRA.
Yeah, NRA and the BBC. There's so many people that move to Breckenridge. Some are retirees, and some are actually just locals raising a family and trying to budget their time. The volunteers really make our community function.
I echo that thoroughly. It's an amazing community that we live in, and the way people do things for each other and for the betterment of the community. We had, my company sponsored, my partner passed away in October last year of a heart attack, and we had over 1,000 people show up for a heart health walk to raise money. We raised over $200,000 for heart health awareness, and I have no idea how many volunteers we had to participate in that, just to make that happen. But 1,000 community members, you know, a town that has like 3,000 or 4,000 residents, for that count of people to get out there is just mind-boggling to me. And the support that had to happen behind it was really special.
Yeah, I concur.
Lastly, you know, join me and let's give a shout out to Gary Martinez. Because last Sunday, I know you were there. I saw you. Yep. I had hundreds of people came in last Sunday to our Riverwalk Center for a retirement celebration for Gary Martinez, who's served over 3 decades, I believe, local government here in Summit County, and was a longtime manager for the town of Breckenridge.
Sure.
Most recently as our county manager. And you know, you saw a lot of people at that retirement that have been around a lot of years in town. And
I was talking with Mike Millizer, my partner, about this yesterday. That it's just like one of those good old, old school Breckenridge kind of parties where you walk in that room and you know almost every single person in there. It was really fun. And Gary, he was when I ran for election to town council this time, he was the first person to sign my petition.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, at gunpoint, but he signed it. So.
And I think he'll go on record. I mean, he really impacted a huge change, a huge effect of Breckenridge, certainly on the county. And he'll probably go down on record as the town manager with the best hair. He's just a beautiful head of hair.
yeah, he still
does. Yeah,
Holman's doing pretty good.
Yeah, I have it, but
Were you there? They were showing pictures of the Riverwalk and the restoration and the transformation of we take it, I think, for granted. I've been here almost 30 years. I forget what it used to look like 25 years ago.
I think a lot of stuff back there.
The pile of rocks and a little stream running through, and now you got this beautiful facility and some open space, and watching those kids play in the river in the summertime. It's a really cool thing. And so, thanks to Gary, and that's just one small thing, a vision of the rec center. I think was under his watch as well, and just lots of transformative things that he was. Part of the leadership team getting those things done, and he should be proud of his career in Breckenridge.
Yeah, thanks to Phyllis for lending him to us.
Exactly. Yeah, thank you, Gary. Well, I want to thank both of you because we're going to go to break now, and when we come back, we'll be joined by Kim Dykstra, who will be interviewing Scott Reed. So thank you both for being with us here today. And we'll see you on the next segment of Breck Buzz.